There is a quote from Henry Ford that says, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right." I have suffered from confidence issues for so long, and recently I feel like I finally have gotten a hang of it. It's definitely still a work in progress for me, but today I want to share a few things that helped me along the journey to boost my confidence and help me become more optimistic. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Venus and I'm a second year music therapy student in Sydney. Today I'm going to talk about everything about confidence, self-talk, self-belief, imposter syndrome. I've suffered from that, particularly in the last 1.5 years, and I really want to share my journey. So as I've just mentioned, I suffered from confidence issues since I was a kid. I always felt like I was not enough. I felt like I didn't fit in, and every achievement that I've maintained along the way was just sheer luck, I guess. And maybe sometimes I was just doing the right thing at the right time, you know what I mean? So yeah, I feel like I was never adequate in a way. And the way I always describe this feeling is like, I feel like a small potato, I don't belong here. It happens everywhere I go, when I join a new gym, when I join a new class, and so on. And as you might all know, I have been an accountant for 5 years before ditching my corporate job and decided to study music therapy. And because I came from a totally non-related background, I felt so inadequate when I attended my first class. I felt like everyone was from like music bachelor degree, music performance, music teaching, and I was an accountant. So what was I doing here? And this kind of inadequate small potato feeling was just so overwhelming when I first started my class in music therapy, because I felt like I was the only one who came from a totally non-related background. I really felt the imposter syndrome, the full force of that. And as I studied, as I went on placements and stuff, I started to gain more confidence, but still there was the voice in my head that always made me feel like I didn't belong here. And it was to the point that everyone around me was telling me the same thing, that it's not because I don't have the skills, it's because I lack self-confidence. It was to the point when my placement supervisors, my guitar tutor, my vocal coach, and also my therapist, and also a speaking coach, they were all telling me the same thing, that you just don't believe in yourself. And that was the point when I felt like, okay, I can't ignore this anymore, I really need to do something about it. And today I can finally tell you that I have made improvements, and I'm quite positive that as long as I continue to improve, continue to grow, that I will be in a better place. So what did I do? And the most obvious but most underrated thing to boost confidence is just to do more. It sounds obvious, but not many people do that because they are too afraid to even just to take the first step. I remember there was a coffee challenge in the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, and the idea basically is that every time you go buy a coffee, you just ask the staff if you can get a 10% discount. It sounds quite ridiculous at first if you think about that, because you obviously know the answer will be no. But the idea behind all that is not to get the discount, but just to start more conversation and get used to the feeling of rejection and failure, maybe. I have to confess that I have never done this coffee challenge myself. But now I think of it, it's actually quite harmless, because it's not a big deal if they reject you, right? You can still grab your coffee and go and move on, right? And the moral behind the story is just that people are often too scared to take the first step. And when you don't have the experience, how are you going to get confidence from it? Because confidence is eventually just by doing something more to a point that you know that will work, you know you have done it before, that's why you have confidence, right? But if you don't start, then how would you know what works and what doesn't? And I'm happy to say that I have gained a lot of confidence from my music therapy experience and also music performance from the previous 1.5 years, I guess. I'm not saying that I'm confident enough to take on the full-on session by myself at this moment, but it's just that I know that I've done this before, and if you put me in the situation, I would have the skills and capabilities to fulfill the demand. And also my confidence in speaking as well. I've done so much practice in the past 5 weeks, and now I'm proud to say that I'm more confident to talk in front of the camera and talk to you directly, looking you in the eye. So I think you just need more experience by doing the damn thing. Just take the first step and everything else will follow. And the next point I really want to talk about is the concept of self-talk. Oftentimes we are not aware of the ideas, the stories that we are feeding ourselves with. For example, if you have encountered failure or just a little bit of obstacles in life, if you start criticizing yourself, then oftentimes you will think so negatively about yourself that you're not going to try again, and you will always feel like you're not enough because this is what you keep telling yourself. If you keep telling yourself that you can't do it again, then you will never succeed, right? Because you don't believe in yourself. And I am a true believer that your self-talk makes or breaks you. So the first step really is to be more aware of your self-talk. Are you constantly criticizing yourself, blaming yourself for all the mistakes you make? Or are you like your best friend, encouraging you along the way and cheering you on to go through all the obstacles in life? Because if you really think about that, you are the one who understands yourself the most, right? Because you spend a lot of time with yourself. But if you don't even encourage yourself, then who's gonna believe that you can succeed? And we just have so much self-doubt and self-criticism in our mind every single moment that is not healthy for our growth and improvement. So what are the ways to improve your self-talk or just not to talk too negatively to yourself? I personally tried 2 things that really helped me along the way. And the first one is what I called a house elf self-talk. If you remember in the Harry Potter series, the house elves, when they talk, they are always referring themselves as like a third person. For example, it's like Dobby is very happy. Dobby is a free elf. Let's look at that for a moment.
Master has presented Dobby with clothes. Dobby is free.
So my point is, every time you encounter a difficult situation, if you just take a step back and look at the big picture, and address everything in like a third person point of view, then you will start having new perspectives in life that you otherwise wouldn't realize because you're too absorbed in that. For example, if your best friend is in the same situation as you are in now, what would you say to him or her? You'll be like, hey Jenny, you shouldn't beat yourself up. It's just too harsh for yourself, don't you think? And Jenny, I think you should blah blah blah. So that's what I mean by the house elf self-talk. If we can just talk to ourselves like we're talking to our own best friend and addressing ourselves like a third person, then things will start to change because now you're suddenly looking at things from a new perspective, from an outsider perspective, and you will start coming up with solutions because it's just like you're helping with your friend. You're very quick to come up with solutions to help your friends. But why are we not doing that to ourselves? So yes, this has been really helpful for me whenever I encounter particularly difficult situations, and I would just be like, hey Venus, just stop and think about this. It isn't that bad as you think, right? And then I will start coming up with solutions and think about what's under my control that I can do something about that. Maybe you can try that as well. But just a warning, when you make a mistake, you don't have to be like house elves. Don't bang your head and don't punish yourself, alright? And the next tip I have for you is called time traveling. I think in the Harry Potter series there is no scene that they travel to the future, but here's what I mean. When you encounter a particularly difficult situation, just think about this. In 6 months' time, how significant will this event be? And oftentimes we will realize that this event is quite temporary. I'm not asking you to not focus at the present moment, but it's just the idea that these too shall pass. Every sad or difficult moment, or actually even happy moments, they will pass and they are not forever. So it's okay to be in that situation. But also think about that. If it's not that significant in 6 months' time, then why are you so worried or so frustrated about that? And also to think about again, what's under your control and what's the worst case scenario and what can you do now to prevent the worst case scenario from happening. This has really helped me because I need to constantly remind myself that these too shall pass, and I can then move on faster. So I hope you find these tips useful in helping you boost your confidence and gain the skills required to achieve your goals, because these are all under your control. It actually requires you to become a completely different person every time you want to step up your game. Speaking of personality, if you have enjoyed this video and would love to see more about personal development content, you would love this video here where I talk about why you shouldn't rely on personality tests and how can you achieve your goals on your own terms. So check it out here. Please also consider subscribing to my Do-Re-Mi newsletter where I share tips and knowledge about DO, doable ideas, RE reflections, and MI mindfulness. Link in the description box down below. Thanks for watching and I will see you guys next time.